Welcome everyone to another week of Ramban ala Parsha. Nitzavim is a short parsha, and it's also a little hard to grab onto the theme, given that it's sort of the very, very end of Moshe's the Neum HaMitzvot, the mitzvot speech that started really in Va'aschan and took up almost the entirety of the Sefer. And there's one particularly fascinating part of the end of Moshe's speech, and it's Perek Lamed. Says the Torah, "V'haya ki yavo alecha kol hadivarim ha'ele haberacha v'haklala asher nasati lefanecha." Okay, all these things happen to you. V'hashevosa el levavecha b'chol hagoyim asher hidichacha Hashem elokecha shama. And you'll return to God. Presumably you're in Galus, you're in the exile. You return to God like other people have returned to God again. V'shavta Hashem elokecha. So really the key word, what does v'shavta mean? Right? Is it imperative? Is it what people quote the Ramban as believing, which the Ramban probably believes, but it's not 100% clear, that there's a mitzvah of tshuva? Or is it v'shavta? It's a nevuah. God is predicting that in the future, when all these exiles happen, we will return to God. So even the language, it can be read in two different ways. Let's read a little bit more. V'shavta Hashem elokecha v'shamata b'kolo kechol asher anochi mitzavecha hayom Ata uvanecha b'chol levavcha v'chol nafshecha. Okay, you and your children, you'll all return to me. Okay, so but what's really going on? Is it the mitzvah, or is it a prediction, or is it a prophecy? And the Torah continues: V'shav Hashem elokecha shvuscha v'richamecha, v'shav v'kibetzcha mikol ha'amim asher fitzcha Hashem elokecha shama. A lot of v'shav, a lot of v'shavta. If you see that as a euphemism or as a synonym for tshuva, so it's pretty clear that that's what the pasuk is talking about. That's what Moshe Rabbeinu is talking about. That we will return to God, right? No matter how far we're dispersed, He'll return us. And then a fascinating pasuk Vav. Umal Hashem Elokecha et levavcha ve'et levav zarecha. So what does the word umal mean? So we all know what a bris milah is. We know what to circumcise a person is. So, your first instinct is to say, okay, it's not literal umal Hashem. You're not going to have a bris milah. God isn't going to circumcise your heart, even though the Ibn Ezra takes seriously the possibility, but then he rejects it. It's not a circumcision of the heart. So what is it? So it turns out the Ramban takes it pretty seriously and pretty literally. But what are we removing from our hearts? So let's look inside. So says the Ramban on that pasuk, Umal Hashem Elokecha levavcha, Zehu she'amru ba li taher misayinoto. A person who wants to become tahor, a person who wants to do tshuva, God is going to help him. Mavtichacha shetashuv elav. God is promising us that if we want to return to Him, He will return to us and He will help us. So now the Ramban is coming to a really, really significant philosophic point in the Ramban. It's something that he's mentioned many times before, but maybe the headquarters is here. Ki mizman habriya Hayta rishut biyad ha'adam la'asod kirtzono tzaddik o rasha. Says the Ramban, when God made the world, He made the world with absolute bechira chafshit. Why is there absolute bechira chafshit? Because without it, we would not be able to have schar va'onesh. What would be the point of being punished if I didn't have free will? What would be the point of being rewarded if I didn't have free will? So those two concepts go together. V'chol zman ha'torah kain. And the world that we know, the world that we're living in now, says the Ramban, in the 1200s, and says now me in the 21st century, v'chol zman ha'torah kain, kidei sheyeh lahem zchut b'bechiratam b'tov, va'onesh b'irtzotam bara. Because that's exactly how the world is supposed to work. The concept of bechira chavshis is necessary for the concept of schar va'onesh, or the reverse. The concept of schar va'onesh requires that we have free will. Without it, it doesn't pay for God to reward or to punish us. Now, unbelievably, says the Ramban. However, aval liyimot ha-Mashiach tihiyeh ha-bechira b'tov lahem teva. But in the future, says the Ramban, when Mashiach comes, it's hard to know how to translate the words, but literally it means that our choice for good will be our natural decision. The way I understand it is, my instinct will be to do good. My instinct will be to do kibud avayim. My instinct will be to give tzedakah. My instinct will be to do the right thing, to do the moral thing. Lo yita'aveh lahem halev lema she'eino ra'ui v'lo yachpotz bo klal. We won't have the instinct, says the Ramban, to want to sin. We won't have the instinct for sexual immorality, something that we all know that exists now. V'lo yachpotz bo klal. That's not who we are. V'hi hamilah hanizkeret kan. Says the Ramban. That's exactly what the Torah is referring to by the milah. Umal Hashem Elokecha doesn't mean to circumcise our heart. It means to take away from our heart the covering that has covered our hearts during our lifetime in this world. The Yetzer Hara, meaning, when God created us, we say it every morning, maybe we don't think about it enough. Elokai, nishama shenatatali bi tahorahi. The nishama that you gave me, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is completely tahor. Maybe I've messed it up. Maybe I've covered it with all kinds of things. But that's the neshama that you gave me. And says the Ramban, Limos HaMashiach, not that human nature will change, but human nature will revert back to what it was supposed to be, where our instincts are all good. It doesn't guarantee we're not going to sin, but our instincts are good. It's not a decision that I have to make every day. I know I can do it. I know that I can be good because God told me I can be good. Ki hachemda, and here it's explicit, ki hachemda, jealousy, vahata'ava, and desire, or la lelev. They're a covering. They're stopping me from being who I'm supposed to be. Umol halev, hu shelo yachmod v'lo yitaveh. Says God, Umal Hashem Elokechat levavcha, God's going to remove from us all the coverings that we've developed in our lives that are covering our hearts, that are covering our ability to be who we're supposed to be. V'yashuv ha'adam bizman hahu la'asher haya kodem cheto shel adam harishon. Then, says God, we can go back to being who we were supposed to be, who God created, which is humanity before Adam Harishon even existed. Shehaya oseh b'tivo ma shero'ui la'asot. Adam Harishon did, by instinct, the right thing, the good thing, because that's who he was. V'lo haya lo birtzono davar v'hipucho. Davar v'hipucho is a phrase the Ramban uses a number of times. Let's assume for a second I'm walking past McDonald's and I'm overcome by a desire for a cheeseburger. I can smell it, and I know what it is. I know what burgers taste like. I know what cheese tastes like. It just happens to me. It's usher to eat them together. So I have to say to myself, yes, I would like to have a cheeseburger, but I'm not going to because HaKadosh Baruch Hu said it was usher. But says the Ramban, we can go back to a time where I'm not even going to desire a cheeseburger because the fact that it's usher makes it not desirable at all, right? Generally speaking, that we don't work on ourselves. I don't work on myself so that I'll develop a rash if I wore shatnez. No, it's also wear shatnez, but it doesn't mean that I'm not going to desire it. But you don't really have a Yetzer Hara for shatnez. But I have a Yetzer Hara for certain things. We all do. And says the Ramban, if we go back to where we were supposed to be before we made a wrong turn, if we're back to Adam Harishon in Gan Eden, we won't have the instinct to sin. Now, I know you're thinking, and it's a very fair question, yeah, but Adam Harishon did sin. If he had no instinct to sin, why did he listen to the Nachash? Why did he eat from the Eitz Hadas? That's a strong question. I don't know that I've seen answers. I don't know that I'm satisfied by them. I'd love to hear from people. I've been getting good emails recently who want to make suggestions. If Adam Harishon didn't have the Yetzer Hara, why did he sin? But okay, that question is there. The Ramban knows the question. Let's just leave it to the side. V'zeu ma shamar katuv b'Yirmiyah. Hinei yamim ba'im nu'um Hashem v'charati et Beit Yisrael v'et Beit Yehuda brit chadasha. Lo ki brit asher karati et avotam. Kizot habrita she'achrot et Beit Yisrael acharei hayamim haim natatia torati bikirbam va'al libam echtevena. No, I'm going to give you the Torah, and it's going to be ki'ilu, carved onto your heart. What does that mean? Says Raman, V'zehu bitul yetzer hara va'asot halev b'tivo ma'aseu hara'oi. That's when HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to cancel our yetzer hara. It doesn't mean we won't have instincts. We'll still have instincts, but He's going to cancel the yetzer hara, and it's going to be so much easier for us to be religious and to be good Jews than it is now. Ulekach amar od. So the pasuk says more. V'hayiti lahem leilokim v'hema yihiyu li la'am v'lo yilmedu od ishet reiheu v'ishet achiv lomar du'et Hashem ki kulam yeduoti limiktanam va'ad gidolam. There won't be any need for people to proselytize. There won't be any need for people to say, "Ooh, this is my God, you should know him." Everybody will know God. Ubiyadua ki yetzer lev ha'adam ra min ne'urav. It's known, right? There is something wrong with our instincts. Utzrichim lelamed otam ubizmanahu ein tzrichim lelamed otam. Yes, in this world we have bad instincts, but limos hamashiach, no one will have to be taught. They'll instinctively do the right thing. Ela sheyit batel yitzram bizman hahu legamre. The world's going to change completely. It's not New Testament stuff. It's not Christianity. Lev chadash means, says Raman, God will remove the covering that we've created over our own hearts, and we'll go back to the way we were supposed to be. V'halev hachadash yirmoz litivo. Lev chadash is a hint, says the Ramban, to the change in human nature. And in many ways, I guess, if you took away my yetzer hara, it would mean I have a lev chadash. V'aruach lechefetz ularatzon. My desire to do good would be revealed. V'zeu shamu rabotenu. V'higiu shneim shanim asher tomar ein li bohem el chefetz. Elu yimot hamashiach she'ein bohem lo zechut v'lo chava. Here's the bad news. If we don't have real bechira chafshis, then God can't reward and punish us, right? So we'll be tzaddikim, it's true, but we won't be able to move up. I mean, the Ramchal has a big piece on this in Mesilas Yesharim at the beginning, where he says, where you get to in Olam Haba is where you're going to be for eternity. If you got bleacher seats, you don't get to tip the usher to move down to field seats. It doesn't work that way, right? And we're all going to be tzaddikim, we're all going to be good, but it'll be too late to move up. Okay, she'ein b'hem lo zchut v'lo chava, ki b'imei HaMashiach lo yihiyeh b'adam chayfetz, aval ya'aseh b'tivo ha'maaseh ha'ra'ui. Right? God won't have to reward us, He won't have to punish us. We'll do the right thing because it'll be our instincts. Ulefikach ein b'hem lo zchut v'lo chava. We don't get rewarded, we don't get punished. It's unfortunate, but that's what it is. Ki hazchut v'achava tuliyim b'chayfetz. And now the Ramban really hammers the point home. The only reason for schar, the only reason for onesh, is to incentivize us and to make us better. But if there's no such thing, hazchut v'hachava tuliyim b'chayfetz. But if I don't have a yetzer hara, if I don't have a desire to sin, so not only does schar v'onesh not apply, but it's not necessary. Okay, and I think in a way, that won't be the greatest thing in the world. Obviously, I'd love the Geula to come, and I'd love for all these great things to happen. But I do think that's a kind of a bad thing. The fact that instinctively I'm going to do the right thing, it makes it less, if you can imagine a situation where you sinned, and imagine a situation where you have to overcome it, you have a particular yetzer hara. And let's say you're not at the point in your life where you just say, well, that's who I am, that's my yetzer hara, I'm just going to continue doing it. No, it bothers you. And then you overcome your desire, you're filled with a feeling of accomplishment. You're filled with a feeling of growth, the feeling that you're a better person than you were this morning because you overcame your yetzer hara. The Ramban strongly hints that feeling won't exist in Olam Haba. It's clearly worth it because we'll be better. But the feeling of overcoming, the feeling of growing, the feeling of personal growth, I don't know. I wonder if that won't be something that we'll miss, and that some of us will miss very much. Limos HaMashiach. Okay, that's the first Ramban. Now, The famous Ramban is the next one in Pasuk Yud Aleph. And we have to look at that closely. The Pasuk says as follows. Ki tishma b'kol Adonai Elohecha lishma mitzvotav v'chukotav haktuva b'sefer HaTorah zeh ki tashuva l'Adonai Elohecha b'chol nafshecha. That's the lead-in. Now, ki ha-mitzvah hazot asher anochi mitzavecha hayom lo nifleiti mimcha v'lo rechakahi lo bashamayim hi le'mor mi'alalon hashamayim v'kachel lo miyashmenu osaviyad v'na'asena v'lo me'ever layam hi yidom t'shem ki karov elecha hadavar ma'od b'ficha u'bilvavcha la'asoto. Says the Ramban, what's ki ha-mitzvah hazot? So it's well known, many people say this. The Ramban thinks that it's referring to the mitzvah of tshuva. Not just he thinks, it's written here, right? And it's okay, the Rambam doesn't think there's a mitzvah of tshuva, whole discussion there. The Ramban thinks there is a mitzvah of tshuva. I just want to think for a second, just amongst ourselves, what would we say? So when I was younger, I think I would have been excited to know that there's a mitzvah of tshuva, right? How could there not be a mitzvah of tshuva? We mess up all the time. God gives us the opportunity. But I think as I get older, I start to worry. Let's say, for example, God forbid, 3 a.m, I get up to go to the bathroom on a Friday night. On my way out of the bathroom, I shut the light. Complete shogeg, right? I didn't intend to be Mechal Shabbos. I wasn't aware enough. I have to do, it needs kapara, but complete shogeg. But let's say for some reason I forget all about it. I forget about it in the morning and I forget about it going forward. And I never do tshuva. Is it fair that like I have double word score? Now I have an Aveira for having shut off the light on Shabbos. Oh, it's a Chil Shabbos. And I have an Aveira, I was mevatel the mitzvah saseh of doing tshuva for turning the light off. I don't know, it's a bit of a problem for me. But now let's see the Ramban. Says the Ramban, Pasuk Yud Aleph, V'tam ki ha-mitzvah hazot al kol ha-Torah kula. That's the general understanding. When it says ki ha-mitzvah hazot, it means the subject of that pasuk is all of Sefer Dvarim. Everything that I've discussed, over the period of time of Sefer Dvarim, you need to accept, and that needs to be something that you'll be careful with the rest of your lives. And what's fascinating about the Ramban is he doesn't say wrong. He says v'hanachon, more correct, I would describe it as, ki al kol ha-Torah yomar kol ha-mitzvah asher anochi mitzavcha hayom. No, the Torah knows how to say Torah, plural, right? The Torah knows how to say ki al kol ha-Torah. You would say aval. Ki al kol ha-Torah yomar kol ha-mitzvah. Right? That's all the mitzvot. What does it mean? Ki ha-mitzvah hazot. Says Raman. Aval ha-mitzvah hazot al ha-teshuvah hanizkeret. No, it's talking about a specific mitzvah, the mitzvah of tshuva that I mentioned to you before. He says, ki v'hashevoto el levavecha, and v'shavta ad Hashem Elokecha, the psukim that we read at the beginning of the shir, mitzvah sheyitzaveh otanu la'asot kein. It's an imperative. V'shavta ad Hashem Elokecha is not a nevuah. It's not a suggestion. It's not a prediction. Says the Ramban, it is a commandment. Mitzvah sheyitzaveh otanu la'asot kein. V'ne'emra b'lashon habeinoni. But says the Ramban, why is it written in sort of a non-committal way? Lashon habeinoni is, says Chevelle in the footnote, v'lo amar b'lashon tzivui. It's not a commandment. It seems like it's something less, right? We've seen this before, b'lashon habeinoni, meaning not past, not present. Not past, not future, some kind of present. It's not a commitment. V'ne'emra b'lashon habeinoni lirmoz b'havtacha ki atid hadavar liot kein. Here the Ramban wants to have his cake and eat it too. A great expression. I don't know what it means. Okay. Says the Ramban, yeah, it's a bit of a prediction. It's a bit of nevuah. It's true. But it's also a mitzvah. That's why it's not written as an absolute commandment. But says the Ramban, it's clearly a commandment. But the Torah is also telling us that it's going to happen. Now, I suppose that's not a contradiction. It sounds a little bit, right? If the Torah said, there's a mitzvah of Shabbos, and you're all going to keep Shabbos. So is that a problem for Bechira Chavshis? Isn't the Torah telling me I'm going to do it? So do I really have free will? I think the Ramban is hinting at that here. And he's saying both things are true. It's technically a mitzvah, but it's also technically a nevuah. Okay, and then we each have to work out how exactly that happens. But says the Ramban, it's going to happen. It has to happen. Now, I happen to think that more important than is it a mitzvah or not is the question, is it a value or not? And here, all Rishonim agree. The Rambam, all Rishonim agree. Of course, there's a value to Judaism. Nobody could ever say, not to Judaism, there's a value to tshuva. Nobody could ever say, I don't know if HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants me to do tshuva or not. Read the Psukim, of course HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants me to do tshuva. Did he command me to do tshuva? Okay, that's a different question. Certainly, intuitively, I like the idea that he didn't command me. He wants me to. He's rooting for me, right? When you have a child, you want him to make the right decision, but you're telling yourself, I'm not going to make the decision for him. And so you do everything you can to make it an easy decision. But Lemaisa, he or she can choose to do what you think is right or to do what you think is wrong. And you hope and you pray and you daven and you support, but it is what it is. I think the Ramban is saying the same thing. Technically it's a mitzvah, but it's at the same time it's a nevuah. And now let's read a little bit more. Vahatam lomar. What the Torah is really saying is, let's say you're dispersed amongst all the nations. God is saying it'll still be possible. You can still do tshuva. Don't think that you're not going to recover. It's not that distant. You can reach out and touch it. It's so close. Literally, it's in you. To say vidui, to apologize, to say to the person, or to say to God, I'm so sorry that I did that. I'm never going to do it again. V'yashuvu bilibam el Hashem v'kablu alehem hayom haTorah la'asotah ledorot kasher hizkir atov v'nacha b'chol v'chol k'mo sheperashti. Says the Ramban, and it's really a deep idea. Sometimes we think it's not going to help. It's not going to work. I did this Aveira, I have to pay the price for it. In a way, that's how we're raised, right? When little kids, their parents tell them, there are consequences to your actions, right? If you break your neighbor's window, you're going to have to take from your allowance money and pay the neighbor back. Sorry isn't going to be enough. But says the Ramban, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu is telling us that sorry is enough. And if you're really sorry, and if you tell HaKadosh Baruch Hu that you're really sorry, and if you tell the person who you insulted that you feel terrible about it and you're not planning to do it again, but then we get stuck on, well, how do I know I'm not going to do it again? How do I know I'm not going to make the same mistake? There's a pressure on me. I'm never going to do it again. Never is a long time. But says the Ramban, that's what the Pasuk is saying. It's not just that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants me to do tshuva, it's that he's rooting for me. And that when I say I'm never going to do it again, he's going to help me. He's not going to suspend my Bechira Chavshis. That's not going to come till Yemos HaMashiach. That was the first Ramban we did today, right? He's not going to change the world, but he's going to help me. And if God's going to help me, when I say I'm never going to do it again, I can believe it. And those are the psukim that we read here. Lo bashamayim hi, lo rechoka hi, lo me'ever layam hi. It's not distant. Ki karov elecha hadavar ma'od beficho bilvavcha la'asoto. If God says I can do it, if God says he believes in me, he believes that I can do it, then I ought to have that same self-confidence, and I ought to believe in myself also. I often think that, one of the greatest obstacles to tshuva is a lack of self-confidence. We think of ourselves as people who have confidence generally, but with respect to my own self-control, with respect to my own desires, I'm not so sure. How can I say to God, I'm never going to do it again? This appears in the Rambam also. But the fact of the matter, says the Ramban, read the Psukim. That's why the Torah is telling me all these things. It's not hard, it's not distant, it's not beyond me. It's beficha bilvavcha. It's in my heart, it's in my mind, it's in my mouth. If I want to do it, and I say publicly that I'm never going to sin this way again, God's going to help me. And that's really the secret of the Nevuah. I think it's much the secret of the mitzvah. I think it's much less about, technically, does it count as one of the Tarag mitzvahs, does not count as one of the Tarag mitzvahs. I think the bigger point is It's a fundamental Torah value. And in a way, whether it was a mitzvah or not, if I do something wrong, fixing it makes me a better person. If that also turns out to be a mitzvah, fantastic. But I need to fix it because otherwise I'm not going to be the person I want to be. And that idea, which the Ramban emphasizes over and over again, the first idea that limos HaMashiach, we're going to lose our Bechira Chavshis, not because it's a terrible thing, but our instinct is naturally to not speak Lashon Hara, to not eat, to not do Averos. Our instinct is to do the right thing. That's the Umal Hashem Elokecha. And the second part, Ki HaMitzvah Zot, yes, it means tshuva. Does it make tshuva a full-fledged part of the Targum mitzvahs? I don't know. But it makes it a significant value. And that HaKadosh Baruch Hu not just wants us to do it, but is rooting for us and is going to help us, not by suspending our free will, but supporting us. Sometimes you feel like in your life that God is helping you to not sin. And when you notice that, it's a big accomplishment. It's a great feeling. And the feeling of personal growth that comes through tshuva, it's hard to think of something better than that. It's hard to think of something more satisfying, even to us human beings, than accomplishing things, than personal growth. So, and with that, let me just wish everybody a ksiv v'achsima tova, a good Gimel Shiyar, a shana tova metuka, and we'll see each other. I'm not sure about next week, but we'll see each other next time. Kol tov.